Hello, JJ Meets World listeners. This is your host with the most, JJ. My goal is to meet every single person on the planet, and the way I'm going to do that today is talking about passive aggressiveness. I'm going to talk about hot dogs. I'm going to talk about exactly why Christmas movies need to be watched in a certain order. We've got a lot to do, so sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of JJ Meets World. And by the way, if you'd like to help support our podcast, visit jjmeetsworld.com, where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some killer swag at our merch shop, or click the link to Apple Podcast and give us a 5-star review.
1, 2, 3, 4. J.J. Gordon, sort of like that Indiana Jones, in that he's always sniffing out his next adventure. Yes, he is. He's always interviewing guests so he can have them on his show and they can talk about pop culture, arts, and leisure. J.J. has his flag unfurled and he likes his french fries curled, and he's fun and then he twirled as he goes to meet the world. He will march into the rain even if his ankle sprained. Take a peek inside his brain. This podcast is called J.J. Meets World.
I'm not the first guy you should call if you're thinking about remodeling your house, but I might be one of the first guys you call if like a door comes off of its hinge, or you've got a couple of loose boards on your deck and you need to figure out a way to get them to hold down. I don't think that I'm amazing when it comes to building stuff, but I am the best. And when I say the best, I mean the best when it comes to installing television mounts. I am the television mount whisperer out in the world. My sister and her husband moved into a new place, and that was the first thing they asked me to do. Like while we were in the midst of moving, they're like, "Hey, we got to put a new TV mount up. Would you do that for us?" I was like, "You betcha. I can push my ear against the drywall and figure out where the stud is exactly. I know how to use toggle bolts. Toggle bolts are a unique thing that have like a metal clasp that lays flat, and you put a hole in the drywall, you push it through, it's got a plastic lead, and when it gets on the other side, you push a small plastic piece that makes that toggle bolt go from laying flat to like being vertical. And now you've created something where you can actually screw into that, and it can hold, like, there are some toggle bolts I think that are, like rated to 200 pounds in 1/2-inch drywall. Mm-hmm. And I know exactly how to place those. I'm just really good at it. And then a couple days later, I did it again for a friend. And then I got one this last weekend, and I'm installing it at my house. And I understand, I just feel like I'm in a Zen moment when I'm hanging a television. And then they ask about opinion, and I go, listen, you got to understand, tilt is huge when it comes to a TV. So if you're going to mount a TV on a wall a distance away from where you are, you have to think, okay, are you going to be sitting on a couch? Because if you are, you don't want to be sitting on a couch looking up. You want to be looking slightly forward. So being able to take it out and put a tilt on it, even bigger. Now, the where I really think I shine is I am the type of person who can figure out how to run cords through a wall. Now, I got to punch a hole in a couple spots and install like a new adapter. But if you don't want cords running across your wall, I can usually make that work for people who are willing to go along on that journey with me.
Right.
So HDMI, Ethernet, cable, power cord, I can figure out how to make all that work. And I feel like maybe I missed my calling in life.
Well, at least you've got some sort of a fallback job if the whole podcasting thing doesn't work out for you, And
it's interesting you say that, because there are services now online for people who just need little things done. So maybe you don't want to hire a handyman for it, and like you don't have the time to wait for a handyman to show up. There are people who are making $1,000 a day by putting together IKEA furniture for people. There are for, like just doing stuff like, oh, I need this couch moved out of my house and taken care of. There are people who are making buku bucks doing stuff like, once you get good at, doing TV mounts, they want someone to come in with a TV mount.
Right.
And so I think that like, maybe I do have another opportunity as a career. Maybe I could go and become the TV mount whisperer.
Yeah, there you go.
Tucker, what kind of television are you rocking right now?
It's a TCL, so it's that brand that you can get 4K TVs for like, a couple $100 basically.
Now, does that stand for the Learning Channel?
TCL, I think, stands for the Channel Learning.
Oh, there you go. Right. I've just put it in backwards.
Yeah. Which is actually what I'm sitting across from right now. So it's my central like hub at home. I have a bunch of different things that run into it. 2 different computers and Blu-ray player so I can watch my moves. And it's actually connected to a whole analog system as well. I've got like a prosumer analog CRT Ikegami monitor and like an analog stereo system that can play, records and tapes and CDs. And so because I'm such a media lover, I want to have access to those things at the same time. And running through those is like that system is like a VCR, a PS2, a Sega Genesis, and pretty soon a Super Nintendo and an N64 and a regular Nintendo. So I want to have access to all these things at once, but I need them to be kind of turnkey,
Oh, there's only so many ports, right? So unless you invest in a really quality switcher of some kind,
right? And
that's part of it.
The other issue that I have though is that my cats, both of them, are like, "Oh, is that a cable? Let me destroy it." Like that's just how they react to electric cables of any kind. So I need to figure out a way to, once this whole thing is set up, to actually protect all the cables so that my cats don't just destroy everything like every week.
Do you remember a place in Fargo back in the day called Gene's TV Clinic?
Oh yeah, I've never been there, but I remember it. Isn't the sign still up?
It is. So Gene's TV Clinic had 2 major distinctions. So this is back in the day where like if something went wrong with your television, you brought it in to get serviced. We did the same thing with vacuums back in the day. But nowadays people are like, "Oh, well, it was only, I bought this giant TV for $300. I got 2 years worth of it. I'm going to just get a new one." And so we're very throwaway in our culture. But back in the day when you got a giant Magnavox television, you'd get 3 buddies to help you load it in the back of your car and you bring it over to Gene's TV Clinic. Now, Gene's also happened to be a Nintendo certified workshop. So if you'd go to the back of your Nintendo Power, there'd be an ad and it would be Mario and he'd be holding a wrench. And it would say, are you having problems with your Nintendo? Call us and we'll tell you who the authorized workshop is in your area. And that was Gene's TV Clinic. And I was always really jealous of the fact that there was somebody who was there whose sole job was to work on Nintendos and then to fire up a Nintendo and be like, "Oh, does the duck hunt work correct? Clunk, 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 clunk."
Right. I always thought people who could do that were basically wizards. They were magicians because as a kid, I remember when my Nintendo stopped working, but we didn't go get it fixed. My parents just got rid of it. Like we just got rid of it. We I don't know if we just gave it away for parts or something. But I remember just thinking like, man, it sucks when that dies. That's it. It's just, you can't bring it back to life unless you're like a computer wizard of some kind. Because what they're probably doing is they're probably going in and like recapping different leads on the motherboard, or they're fixing the pins that are supposed to read the cartridge. I wonder, I've always wondered how much damage we were actually doing to the cartridges by blowing in them all the time.
Oh, well, we weren't helping at all. That's the thing.
we were adding moisture.
Blowing in the cartridges as well as shaking Polaroid instant film are 2 things that just society in general think that you do, but are actually harmful for the device. Here's another thing where society has ruined it. So I'm going to describe to you a dessert and you tell me what it is. Okay.
Okay.
It is bright orange or can be rainbow colored. Sometimes it's red. It is a heavy fruit flavored frozen dessert similar to ice cream.
Sherbet?
Yeah. Do you know that it's not sherbet? There is no second R in sherbet. It's sherbet.
Oh, sherbet. Okay.
Sherbet. So It is one of the biggest scandals of the English language that at some point we decided to add an extra R in sherbet. Sherbet, there's no second R. It is SHERBET. Let that sink in for a minute, ladies and gentlemen. You've been saying the word sherbet wrong your entire life. I brought this up at a dinner party recently, and the hostess was like, no. And she went and got a container of sherbet. And sure enough, sherbet enough, there was no second R in it. And it blew her mind. And then I think I might have ruined her dinner party because she was so intent on proving that that was what it was. Do you find that like you feel the need to correct someone if they pronounce something wrong?
I have in the past, but I've lost that need. I just don't care anymore, I guess. I intentionally mispronounce things all the time, but in a
like
much
Tim Heidecker.
Kind of. I mean, it's sort of just a different, if I just feel like it.
I find myself not trying to correct people unless they keep saying it over and over. Like, one, I'm not going to correct you. Two, I might give you like a little look and, you know, like a little, what's going on? And then by the third time, I will privately be like, it's Schwarzenegger. And correct your pronunciation.
Anytime you think someone's saying something wrong, though, do you ever feel self-conscious like, wait, am I wrong? And do you make sure to check yourself before you go and correct them?
I have tried to do that, like passive aggressive, like, listen, I've been saying it like this forever. Am I wrong? And then you call out, it's like calling out the person and they say like, oh, I don't know. And so you go like, oh, well, God, isn't that weird? Well, it's one or the other. I do that sometimes rather than just like coming straight out and being like, you moron, it's sherbet. There's no second R. You're inventing it.
I think part of the difference here is that you engage with just random people at a far higher rate than I do on a daily basis because of your job, right? Like you've just got randos that call in for different, you know, whatever thing you're doing at that moment. And you have to hear how they mispronounce stuff. So I just think that you're in the line of fire in a way that I'm not.
I think one of the Tucker, a watershed moment in our friendship was when we were driving through Indiana to your grandma's house, and we just sat in silence for a little bit. And then I felt uncomfortable enough where I was like, well, that was a long time. No one said anything. It was like 5 minutes. And you go, yeah, we're comfortable enough with each other where we don't have to fill every second. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh my God, he's totally right. And I look for that in my relationships now, like people who I can be with, you know, and one of us doesn't have to be on a cell phone. The other person can be just staring right at the same, you know, tundra that I'm staring at through the windshield.
You know what's a sign of a really good friend? A really good friend is someone who you can cancel plans with.
Oh, and not hold it against you. Not like be like, oh, like, God, okay, fine, just again.
Like you and I were going to go to a movie recently, and that day I was just too overwhelmed with stuff that I had to take care of, and so I texted you and canceled on you, and you were like, "Yep, no problem, man." And I was like, "Hey, that's a good friend right there who lets you cancel stuff and doesn't get pissed off about it."
Hey, let me ask you. Okay, so we're kind of talking about like social norms and stuff like that. We're both in a world where we have a lot of creative friends who do creative things. Have you ever been blunt with someone when they asked you your opinion about something that they created or were a part of? Or did you find a way to gloss it over?
I'm trying to think of the last time I was even in that position.
There's a great running gag in the show 30 Rock where after the Jane Krakowski, who plays Jenna, gets off, it's a running gag of her getting off stage and Liz giving great things. She's like, wow, you remembered all your lines. And then the next time it was like, the lighting was so good. And the third time was like, this program is so concise. And what's funny is like the way that Tina Fey's character remembers it is she found ways to like compliment her. And the way Jane Krakowski remembers it is Liz is always standing there with a progressively uglier and uglier man by her side. And so I guess it all.
How does that feel to be cast in one of those parts? You're like, where on the line am I?
I think of that all the time. Like when you see a hemorrhoid commercial, like, is there a moment where like ring, 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 ring? Hello, Mom, it's your son, Danny. I did it. I booked the big one. I'm going to be in the hemorrhoid commercial. And like that maybe is the only thing that you ever do professionally. And you have to keep including it on your reel over and over as you go to audition for other stuff.
Well, I also think about what it must be like. I'm a big Sopranos fanatic, and so I watch scenes from that all the time. And it's filled with people calling fat people like super fat. Like, hey, you're a lard ass, or whatever, that kind of stuff. And I wonder if those actors would be like, God damn, this sucks. I'm like, I don't like this part of the job of playing this role because I'm getting like browbeat in character all the time for my weight.
Yeah, there's probably a lot of truth to that, don't you think? Like,
yeah.
Like I've told the story many times, but like my audition for The Second City, where you go in and it's a room of like a bunch of different people. It's very diverse. And then you get your call back and you're like, oh, I'm the chubby, funny guy. Because you're with like a room of like 40 other people who look just like you. Right. And they're all trying to channel the same thing. And we all were at JCPenney in the big and tall department. And now we are gathered here trying to, not be uncomfortable when we're doing a scene about like, dating someone and you're like, oh God, I'm not worthy. My self-image is way down in the toilet right now. Oh God. My coworker, I make jokes about myself on the radio all the time, probably because like, I feel if I can get ahead of it, no one else can use it to hurt me and harm me later on. But I'll say things like, well, I'm a big guy and I didn't think that I could fit well in a mining car. And then we'll get off air and she's like, you're not small, but you're not as big as you portray yourself to be. And she's like, you should really have like a better image of your body. And I was like, oh, well, that's a very nice thing. Like when someone takes you to task for your body image, in a weird way, like it feels good, right? It's somebody is so offended by the description I have of my own body that they had to tell me I was wrong.
Right.
So those are the moments I like, especially after, we just got through a major eating holiday. And I got a pie from Costco, a pumpkin pie, 58 ounces, 11 3/4 inches in diameter. Retails $5.99. It's got to be a loss leader. They're just bringing them in the store, hoping that you buy other stuff. So I am down to 2 pieces left in that pie, and it's only been me. And I'm going to eat the last 2 at the same time. And I'm not even going to put it on a plate. I'm going to eat it right out of the pie tin.
Yes, standing at the open fridge.
Yeah. One of the saddest. Okay, let's talk about some food things real quick. 2 of the saddest things I've ever seen.
Before we do, I'm sorry. I want to understand, why did Jill not eat any? This is pumpkin pie.
Oh, she's been gone. She spent her Thanksgiving holiday in the Twin Cities visiting her brother and his wife. So
you had Thanksgiving alone, JJ?
Well, I went over to friend's house for the actual like Thanksgiving holiday, but I did cook a turkey and make a Thanksgiving meal just for me, just so I had leftovers.
Nice. Okay, good. And
it's been, I love my wife, but it's kind of fun to have some time apart too, so like I could do whatever I want. I've had a very specific list of movies I wanted to watch to celebrate Thanksgiving and then segue into Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
So, I just been handling what I need to handle. Anyway, so I've been eating this pie all by myself. And it did make me think of two instances that were the saddest moments I've seen. So if you listen to the last episode of JJ Meets World, I detailed a friend whose vehicle was stolen. So that friend once showed up at my house the summer that I was living in Chicago, and I came home for a while during the summer, and and he came over one night, and he was inebriated. And
imagine that.
When he's walking up to the house at like 3:00 in the morning, he's not wearing pants. He gets out of his car and he's not wearing pants. He's wearing a shirt and underpants and flip-flops, but no pants. So he walks in, and my mother wakes up because I'm at home, right? Like my apartment, I have an apartment in Chicago, so I don't need a place in Fargo. So my mom comes down, and this gourmet puts together the most decadent hot dog you'll ever see. So he puts a hot dog on a plate and puts the plate into the microwave and sets it for 5 minutes, which is 4 minutes and 30 seconds longer than you need to cook a hot dog. Then he proceeds to go and get a bun. And so he gets a bun, and he puts a bun not on a plate, but on a tray. And he proceeds to go into the fridge, and almost like if a bear was in your fridge, and you hear just like things falling over in there, and you hear someone eating before they even like turn around, like they're eating directly out of the fridge. And the only light on in the house is the light from the fridge. So he turns around, and one of the things he's got a handful of olives, garlic stuffed olives. So he pops those right on top of the bun. Then he takes cast clay French onion dip and takes a scoop out of it with his fingers and flop right down onto the bun. And then he gets a series of other condiments and pops it on there. And then there's some cheese. And at this point, we hear a because the hot dog has exploded in the microwave. So he goes in there and gets the hot dog, which if you've ever seen, here's what a hot dog looks like that explodes in the microwave. If you've ever seen someone pop a latex balloon and then you see the aftermath where it's all stretched out and it looks like it's, got some spittle on the inside and the color's not the same because it's, had this massive explosion take place. That's what it looks like, and it's in 3 chunks, and he pops that onto the bun, and then he pops a little bit of hot sauce on there and then takes a huge bite, and the satisfaction that came out of his mouth was, it was so disgusting. It was just one of the most grotesque things I've ever seen in my life. But it's one of my favorite things that I've also seen. At the time, I had a digital camera and I took some pictures. In fact, I'm going to see if I can find one of those because I think it would make great cover art for this episode.
That works. Yeah, sounds good.
So
I've been Googling pictures of like Kodiak bears, but I think what you're saying is even better.
Okay, so the second, and this one's even sadder. So I didn't see this firsthand. This was told to me by a friend. So we have a series of guests who actually all lived together in a house at one point. And Britta was telling me about how Phil, who owned this house. Now, this is a different Phil than the last Phil.
I mean, we didn't really say it was the last Phil, but
right.
We all know.
We're going to just all assume, right?
We know who it was.
She said that Phil had been sick, so she walked upstairs. She lived in the basement, and she walked upstairs to the kitchen. And Phil, who had been sick for a couple days, was eating what I call a loose hot dog over the sink. So he didn't want to get any dishes dirty. So he warmed this hot dog up just in the microwave. And then he's wearing his glasses. This is a clear sign. If you know somebody who you always see wearing contact lenses, but then they're wearing glasses, they don't feel well.
JJ, so the fact that the 2 saddest moments you've ever been witness to in some way involve
hot dog based
microwaving hot dogs, I think you need to become a filmmaker, and your signature is that a character is at their lowest point when they are microwaving a hot dog.
When
Like
there's
that's the moment.
when there's a sad hot dog scene.
That's how you know that then that's a JJ Gordon hallmark.
So if like it's a scene where it's I'm directing a version of the Christmas Carol and there's someone eating a sad piece of wurst.
Well, there's some really great variation to both of these, right? Like even though it's both two dudes named Phil, both of them are in a weakened state. One, explodes it in the microwave. The other one is eating it over a kitchen sink. I think the third one maybe finds one outside and cooks it over a radiator. Like it's got to be something like that. So there's some variation to it.
And the really ironic thing about hot dogs and JJ is I don't like hot dogs. Like it's not something that appeals to me in the least. Even the thought of like eating one right now is like, nope, no, thank you. Gross. Don't care for it. Are you a hot dog? Are you a hot dogger?
No, I'm a brat guy when it comes to sausages. I'll eat a hot dog, but yeah, a hot dog is something that the only instance I'm probably going to eat a hot dog is if that's what's available at like a ball game in close proximity. But even then, there's usually brats or burgers. So yeah, I mean, hot dog is definitely not what I look to, and there's nothing about the hot dog itself that seems appetizing to me.
Oh, 110%, dude. I could not agree with you more. And in fact, so one of my favorite television shows is Freaks and Geeks. You ever watch Freaks and Geeks?
Oh yeah.
So Freaks and Geeks has a great moment where it's all set like in the early 1980s and they go into a Sears and the kid wants to look at Ataris and there's a salesman. He goes, ma'am, like it's the miracle of the microwave oven. And she's like, oh, I don't know. She's like, does your son like hot dogs? Cooks a hot dog in 30 seconds. Think of the time you'll save. And I gotta be honest, like I don't disagree with him, but we're in an era right now where the air fryer is king. Everyone loves their air fryer and they love to tell you about their air fryer. They want to make sure that you know that the air fryer is the appliance du jour on their countertop. But to me, it's just, I remember when the Vitamix was one of those things. And I remember when everyone was talking about their toaster oven. And then there was the time where everyone was like, no. You're missing out. It's all about the food dehydrator. And we just get sucked into these weird worlds where all we want to do is like buy the latest kitchen gadget. And don't get me wrong, I've gotten sucked in too. I bought a sous vide cooker and I use it once a month at most.
Yeah.
But when I do make it, like, I mean, it's perfect. Like the way it does my steak is just out of this world.
I will say I'm very drawn to the air fryer notion. I'm thinking about maybe gifting myself one for Christmas.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I need stuff to make things just a little bit easier to cook.
Yeah, and it is super convenient. Right. Like, and it kind of keeps your portion size down a bit, too. So you can't do an entire bag of Totino's pizza rolls in it. You can only do about half a bag in most of them. So it keeps you from yourself in a lot of ways, which I think is nice.
Is that a clarifying question you ask in a lot of sales deals where you go, how many Totino's pizza rolls could I fit inside of it? You're going to be trying to buy
I'm the
car?
guy. Those are the kind of questions I ask when I do make a rather large purchase.
How big is the glove compartment? How many Totino's pizza rolls could you fit in that glove compartment?
And he's like, oh, geez, we only have a hot pocket ratio. And I was like, good day, sir.
You got to get me back into this car. I have about 10,000 Totino's pizza rolls in the center console.
And the thing is I don't need to know for the future. I need to know for right now. Right. Like, so
Right.
I got a shopping cart full of Supreme pizza rolls out there and they're baking in the sun, man. They won't last much longer. Now, are you going to sell me this fucking Volkswagen or not?
I'm looking at air fryers on jeffbezos.com right now. Is there a brand?
Let me give you a pro tip.
Yeah.
I know that you're not a man who likes to go out to stores.
But I'll do it.
But Bed Bath & Beyond, right now has great deals on air fryers, and they've got a coupon for 25% off your entire purchase. And all you got to do is you can buy it online. You can use the coupon online, and then you can just go and do like pickup. So you just walk in there and you go to the counter and give them your name. They give you your stuff and you go. Now, if you're going to buy yourself a Christmas gift, are you going to wrap it and then unwrap it?
No,
or are you going to just like be like, look at what I got?
I'm going to use it right away.
I think that stores nowadays, everyone needs to offer some kind of a delivery service, especially when you buy a big ticket item. I was over at the store where the costs are and
yeah, wow, really?
Yeah.
Which one?
Can you believe that?
Yeah.
And I was looking at televisions, and this is what held me back. I was like, this won't fit in my car. I'd love to buy this today, but it won't fit in my car. I've got no other way to get it home right now. And I think that I just don't know enough people with trucks who can owe me favors.
Yeah.
You know, like recently you were telling me about like you acquired a new piece of furniture and you had to go through a whole lot of rigmarole to get it, didn't you?
I'm sitting on it right now and I'm loving it. But I needed a love seat for my office / media room. And so I had to go and rent a U-Haul trailer, and I had Reese Seminole with me, thankfully, because he has the strength of 10 men. And so we went and picked it up. And but I had to go and do a whole rental process and sign a bunch of documents and reserve it. And it had to be in a certain time frame and stuff. And luckily, I don't need that service that often. But man, that is a moment where you go, I wish I kind of did own a big vehicle that could just do this. But then you kind of go, well, where am I going to put it?
And that's one of the big issues, right? Is that when you've got something that is just like huge and you're like, I know I want this and I know I'm going to make use of it, but finding out where it's going to be it can be a sticky situation.
Right.
Do you find that when you get a piece of furniture, you hold on to it for a long time?
I try to. It just depends on what the cats do to it, you know?
Oh, yeah. You do have some cats that destroy stuff on a pretty regular basis.
Yeah. I mean, well, Pete still has his claws. And so, like, I know this love seat's going to get holes and scratches in it all over the place. And, you know, their other dander and their hair gets everywhere, too. But no, I try to hold on to it. I mean, if I like the piece of furniture, if it's comfortable, if it serves the purpose, I want to hold on to it if I can.
When you give your pets a human name, do you find yourself like in casual conversation being like, well, yeah, then Pete peed all over me last night, and find yourself having to like look around and be like, it's a cat. It's my cat. It's my cat.
Well, luckily Pete's never peed all over me at night, but pretty much anyone who knows my name knows the names of my cats because I constantly talk about them and post about them. So
you do maybe too much.
So that's fine that you think that.
It's fine that I know that. There's a difference between thinking and knowing.
It's not too much for me. It's just enough.
Let me tell you about someone who takes their pet more seriously than even Tucker. I spent an hour and a half in a horse barn this week.
Why?
And horse owners obsess over their horses, and because horses are the type of pet where you need to go and there's a lot of work and they're very expensive and you can't just leave them for a couple days. You know, there's a lot that goes into like taking care of a horse. And I went to this horse barn because in a very short amount of time you're going to get a special episode of JJ Meets World with another one of our Kepler radio plays. And in this one, there's a scene that takes place at the founding of the town in 1871. And they ride up on a horse. And I needed horse noises. And I needed a very specific horse noise. I needed the sound of a gallop in the background, getting closer and closer and closer. And then when it arrives, the horse doesn't just stop. Like the sound doesn't stop. It kind of like clomp, 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 like it's getting set. And then someone dismounting a horse.
Mm-hmm.
So I called previous guest Shelly Fink, and I was like, hey, you've got a horse. Let me come and Hollywood myself into your horse barn and take care of this. So she boards her horse with a bunch of other horses. And the first thing I do when I get there is I'm like, all right, I'm intimidated by horses. I'm not going to lie. They're big creatures.
You should be. They're powerful. They could hurt you if you're not
Yeah.
careful and respectful with them.
And I saw Mad Men. I knew that Don Draper's bastard father got killed by getting horsed in the face.
Yeah.
Plus, like, there's anytime someone falls off of a horse, like, you know, like there's a lot of horrible stories about people who got, you know, and horses, I guess, are really in tune to human feelings. And so they can tell if you're uncomfortable. So I had to check in with myself and be like, listen, just concentrate on the fact that this place stinks like horse shit. And let that. So I said, listen, how do you get horses to make noises? Because I need a, and then I need, you know, and I need clop, 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 clop. And here I am doing the noise. And she's like, why didn't you just make the noises? And I was like, okay, well, forget that, but let's keep moving along. So the horses in this place are all microphone shy. None of them want to make any noises. When I walked in there at first, they were chatting, having a wonderful time. You would think that they were watching a Jay Leno special and they were just having the time of their lives. And the second I get the microphone out, they all are just silent. So then the idea is like, okay, why don't we walk this horse past other horses? And it's sort of like, you know, when you walk someone past a cubicle and they're like, hey, Jim. Oh, hi, Carol. And they just kind of greet each other. Nothing. Finally, one of them gets close to the other one, but they get so close that they both do like a, and then I jump back and go, holy shit, because I have to be up close to get the sound. And now, unfortunately, I've got a great holy shit recorded, so I can't use it. Ugh. So we do some more stuff. Finally, I'm like, why don't we go outside and get the like clopping that I need, and we'll come back and try it again. And so we get the clop, 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 clop. That it turns out beautifully. Like that sound just was gorgeous. I loved it. And there were some outdoor horses, and these outdoor horses were making noises, but they were at the far end of their pen. And so I wasn't getting real crisp audio.
Okay.
So I'm in a situation where I'm like, okay, I got to figure out what to do. So I'm petting this horse, and I'm like, this horse and I are going to bond. I'm going to stare into its giant brown eye, and like an actual eye, not its like, because you can only see one on a horse. I'm not staring into the horse's butt. I just want to make it perfectly clear. I am not staring into the horse's butt.
Yeah, that's new thumbnail art.
So I really bond with this horse, and I'm petting it a lot. And then my horse mistress comes over and goes, oh, I think he loves being pet, but just so you know, he's got ringworm. And I was like, ugh. And she's like, it only will spread to you if you have a cut or something like that. Well, I had a bad cuticle that day. And so I was like, oh my God, am I going to get ringworm? Because I know it's something that people can get. And I don't know if it's painful or what, but it's one of those things where I find it hard to think of a moment where I'd have to approach my boss and be like, listen, I need to go to the hospital today to get treated for ringworm. So I'm going to need a half day.
This all would have been solved if you had just gone to horsesoundeffects.com or something and just,
you know what? Here's the thing. I looked for probably a good 45 minutes trying to find exactly what I needed. And there wasn't anything that was, I needed something so precise and so exact. And a lot of these, you know, they're like, hey, you know, it's this and it's $5. And I'm like, you know, I'd have to spend like $40 to cobble together what I really needed. And I also want to make sure that I'm not stealing anyone's creative property. Like there's a lot of amazing sound effects on YouTube. The problem is that a lot of them, you know, I don't know where they came from. I don't know if this person stole it off of a CD, and right. I'm big into making sure artists get paid for their work. Right. So I've set up this whole Foley studio now in my home studio so that I can create sound effects. Like in this Kepler play, not only are there horses, but they find a time capsule at one point, and it's supposed to be a metal box that's got all this stuff in it. And I was like, well, what am I going to use? Oh, I'm going to use my ratchet set. It's all right. Don't worry. Like I give it away in the description of what's going on. But I've been making sound effects. And so, things like, oh, okay, so I need to sip the sound of sipping from a coffee cup and sipping from like a plastic cup, drastically different.
They are way different, yeah.
And the sound of like how a little girl would chug lemonade is different than the sound of how an old man would chug lemonade. And so I now have a full range of sound effects that I've saved on my computer. And I bet you would like to hear what some of these sound effects are called. Would you like to know, Tucker?
Yes, please.
Okay, good. Because I was going to tell you anyway. So in my sound effects folder, I have sipping coffee cup, sipping plastic cup, walking to walking away, woman walking away fast, walking on gravel fast, walking on gravel slow, two people walking on gravel, child, adult on gravel, car door slam, car start, car turn off, crowd noises, door opens, door closes, store door opens, winter storm door opens, and it goes on and on and on and on.
I like experiencing the show through its various sound effects cues in order.
Do you like that?
That's nice.
Piano slam is another one that took a while for me to make because I had to ask somebody who was like, listen, could you play the piano for a little bit and I need to do this? And then I will signal you when I want you to stop. It reminds
Piano
me.
Slam sounds like a review show.
like about pianos
tonight to Piano Slam.
It sounds to me like it's the name of like a kitschy diner that you go to with your parents. Like, welcome to Piano Slam, everybody. Can I get some jalapeno poppers started for you?
The Slammer Jammers.
Yeah, the ham slammer.
God.
I have had a lot of fun making these Kepler radio plays, and the next one after this is called the Kepler Curse, and the beginning of Ernest Scared Stupid is really what inspired it, just so everybody knows. But the next one I'm writing solely by myself, and I got to tell you, Tucker, this is a spoiler just for you. There's a Blenders parody in it, and the group is called The Mixers.
Yes, I love it. I love Blenders references in media.
And
I just bought an audio cassette tape of the Blenders.
Oh, did you?
I did. I think it may be currently the only audio cassette tape that I own. I don't even know if my audio cassette tape player will work. I'm going to try that today. I'm excited.
Oh, you definitely should. Well, like I renamed them. So instead of like Tim Casper, it's Jim. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that they're pretty darn good.
Nice.
So I think that people are going to enjoy this. And it was a lot of fun to write it because I feel like I know those guys well enough that I wrote them how the world perceives them and not exactly how they are one-on-one. If that makes sense.
I can't wait.
But these things have been a lot of fun. Making the sound effects is frustrating. Have you ever had to make sound effects? Because I know you do sound design for plays.
Yep, I've had to make them before in the same situation that you're in, where you go, hey, I've got libraries of sound effects that I do have the rights to use, or I could go buy some, but I'm not finding anything that's as specific to the need as I have. Like, even if it's something where it's a door opening, there's thousands and thousands of different door opening sound effects on the internet that you can use, but you might need one that looks like a very specific, or that sounds like it comes from a very specific type of door and it needs to move in such a way, and so you need to go and create something for that. And recently, like, I just did the sound design for You'll Be Jolly, which is the show at the E2B Open right now that our previous guest Kevin Kennedy wrote. And I did this. So I did the sound design for that show, which meant I had to come up with like the pre-show music playlist and intermission playlist. And then there were some sound effects throughout the show. And so I was
by the way, can I give you a note on I saw it last night.
Oh yeah, go for it.
So there's several scenes that involve a cell phone.
Yeah.
And you don't think that Santa Claus would have a ringtone that's like Christmas themed?
So that's along the same lines. Is I couldn't find a Christmas themed ringtone that I actually liked that felt right for it, because all of the finding exactly what I was looking for, I could not find it, and I ended up settling with what I consider to be the ringtone of the Boomer generation. Like anytime you hear that ringtone, you're like, oh, that's a Boomer.
Yep, because it's the default iPhone ringtone.
Right. So I basically just sort of took the angle that Santa was just not sophisticated with his phone at all.
So
but no, you're right.
Some real intentionality in there, huh?
I had to come up with the intentionality that worked with what I could find, because I couldn't get a hold of what I was looking for. But what I was getting at was I was able to find all the other source sound effects that I needed, with the exception of, at the very end, I had gotten a note from the director, Pam, that was, hey, I want some sort of an announcement sound effect when this character comes in at the end. All I know is I want it to be cartoony. I don't know anything else. I just want it to be something. And I was like, okay. And so what I ended up doing was, this person is driving a vehicle up and stopping and then sort of being announced as they enter the room. And so I wanted to create the sound of a car screeching to a halt, crashing into something, and then some sort of a musical sting that would take us in. And so I was able to find the sound using a service that I purchased sounds from. So I wasn't like having to take from anything. I was able to find the sound of like a car screeching to a halt. But then I had to create the crash sound effect that I thought would work, because all the crash sound effects I could find sounded horrific. They sounded like someone had died, and there was explosions, and it was like cars crashing into cars, and way too much. And so instead, I took the sounds of a bunch of cardboard boxes being toppled over. I took the sound of a plaster plate being smashed on the ground. And I took the sound of a metal trash can being hit by something metal. These were all sound effects that were in the service. And then I edited them together in post-production to make the crash sound effect that sounded like it would fit. And then I just added a kazoo sound at the end, because I was like, I don't know what sort of musical sting I could even find that would be appropriate for it. And it ended up working out. So that's the kind of scenario that I've run into a lot, where it's not that I can't find reference noises that work. It's that I'll have to take a bunch of things and make something new in post-production that serve the effect, if that makes sense.
It absolutely does. And in fact, let me double down on this and say, so one of the things that has bothered me the most while I've been making sound effects is I need like 5 or 6 characters will enter a room, right? And they enter through a door. The problem is that I don't want to use the same door sound effect over and over and over again, because it, like, not everyone opens and closes a door the same. Right. And so I find myself if I have 5 characters entering, I have 5 different open and closes. Like, some are quick and fast, some are open, and then there's a line of dialogue, and then they close it. And so those are the things that drive me the most crazy, I think, is trying to vary my sounds.
I gotta say, talking about this is making me want us to do another improv episode, because
you did so well on those.
Thank you. Editing in the sound effects for those were some of my absolute favorite things. Like trying to create the soundscape of being on an airplane was very difficult, but by the time I was able to get it tuned in, I was like, oh, this works so perfectly. Yes.
In fact, I believe the episode is like, being married means not always having to go to McDonald's.
Something along those lines. Yeah.
And so if you can go back and listen to that, here's what's brilliant is we've filmed all of those voice pieces in the same room, but Tucker was able to manipulate the pieces so well independently that, like, there's an overhead announcement that is really well done. And then what I learned from you in that is that if you put essentially like a bass noise behind it, so in this case, it was kind of the sound of like a low sound of like a jet engine. It really sets the tone for what the whole thing feels like. right?
Right. Like it's the kind of sound effects that may not always stand out if you're not paying attention, but your brain is picking them up and it's helping create that sense of place of going somewhere. By the way, that episode was episode number 35. Marriage is always going to McDonald's.
Yeah, there you go.
That might be my favorite episode of our show.
It is so good. It's so it's so good. Because I will listen to it. Like I've probably listened to that episode 5 or 6 times, and I'll listen to it and I will still laugh at some of the stuff that happens in that episode.
I'll probably listen to it right after we're done recording because
there
I'm
you
on
go.
vacation
Fantastic.
right now.
It does make me want to go to McDonald's though. That's part of the problem. And Shamrock Shakes, which I believe we reference in that episode, are not currently available.
Are the McRibs currently available?
The McRib is available, but here's the deal. I understand that some people may be listening to this later and later. Check your local McDonald's. Currently, they are available in our local area, Tucker, as well as the High C Orange Lava Burst. So you can get both of those together, and we call that a 4th grade special.
We'll lock this in a little easier. As of November 27th at 11 a.m., those were available here, and at least in the Fargo Moorhead area.
My mother-in-law enjoys a McRib sandwich. Ugh. And my father-in-law is 100% a vegetarian. And so recently
I didn't know that about him. I kind of assumed that he wouldn't be.
Oh, no. Yeah, for as big of an outdoors, I think we associate outdoors kind of people with liking meat, but Pete's not a meat eater. In fact, he's technically a pescatarian because he will eat fish.
Okay.
But Pete, I don't think likes this. For sure, he doesn't like the smell of fake meat, which I think the McRib borders on. And the reason he gave up eating meat is he put himself partially through college re-roofing houses and partially working at a slaughter plant.
Oh, okay.
He has told me the most, let's bring this back to hot dogs, because he told me a horrific story about hot dogs. And he said, so what they do is, like the hot dogs are all essentially the leftover parts of the pig that they don't cut up into nice pork chops and stuff like that. All 100% edible. It just would not look good if you put it on like a grocer's freezer. So what they do is they put it all into a big giant vat, and they essentially like boil it to the point of where it becomes a mush, and that's how they can form into the hot dogs. But when you put all of that into the big boiler, you know what's at the top of it, bobbing like apples? Snouts. So he told me about walking on this like metal walkway, and you look over and it's a giant vat. It's like the kind of vat that the Joker falls in Batman. And they're bubbling amongst like all of this like greasy stuff, and the smell are all these snouts going in and out of the water at the top. Bubble, 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 bubble.
Right. If I had to hunt and kill and prepare my own meat on a daily basis, my guess is I would be a vegetarian too, or a pescatarian, because I've done it with fish. I'm definitely the guy who's like, hey, I want chicken, but I want it to not look anything like the animal that you harvested it from. I want it to be, machine separated and fried crispy, and I want it to just feel like it's its own thing that no creature had to die for. And I'm willing to do whatever psychological gymnastics I need to do to let me go buy another burger,
I heard a story third hand about one of our previous guests who is a vegetarian for a very long time. In fact, that was a very big part of their identity, I feel like. And in recent years has switched to eating meat, which still freaks me out whenever I see them do it. But they also have this little kind of fun farmstead, and they've got egg-laying chickens right now. But their partner has decided that they're going to buy fryer chickens, which are the chickens you raise and then eat. And I was like, I do not see this person ever like they may be eating buffalo wings now, but I can't see a world where they go and chop the head off of a chicken and then pluck the feathers out. Yeah. I might be wrong. I might be dead wrong, but I just can't see that.
Is that going to end up being their partner's job then?
Here's the thing. Have you ever been to a place where like they slaughter like that, where an animal is slaughtered on site and Like, have you ever been to something like that?
I don't know. I don't think I've ever been to a slaughterhouse before.
Or not even a slaughterhouse, but like a farm where they may slaughter their own animal, like a ranch or anything like that.
I've been to plenty of farms and ranches where I'm sure that probably happens.
So it's just like a fish cleaning house. The smell, and then you're always seeing the feathers everywhere because you try as you might, you're never going to keep them all in one spot. And then the place looks kind of dingy. In fact, you know who nails it is when George Miller made the movie Babe. The kill house in Babe, I think, is 100% real for, the depiction of what it is. By the way, I love the movie Babe. I think that movie's so good.
I'm trying to remember.
Maybe want to get a pig.
I'm trying to remember last time I even saw it.
Really? I watch Babe once a year. It's a Christmas movie because there's one Christmas scene in it.
How many movies do you ritualistically watch every year?
Oh, like where I have an annual viewing of it?
Yeah.
Probably 70 or 80.
Damn.
So, like, for example, would you like to know what my Thanksgiving playlist was? Like, this is a good example.
Yeah, let's do it.
Tuesday before Thanksgiving, I watch Planes, Trains, and Automobiles because that lines up with the exact day that film starts. The next day, I watch Son-in-Law because Son-in-Law is about him coming home for Thanksgiving, and the bulk of the movie takes place before the holiday. On Thanksgiving, I watch Home for the Holidays with Holly Hunter, directed by Jodie Foster, which, truth be told, is one of the funniest movies I've ever seen. And it's funny in this kind of dark, dramatic way. And they nail what it's like to have family together. They knock it out of the park. It's so friggin' good. And then on Thanksgiving, after I finish Thanksgiving, like the Thanksgiving meal, I watch the 1994 version of Miracle on 34th Street because that movie starts on Thanksgiving Day. And then after that, it's kind of this crapshoot of what I watch. But I watched Batman Returns yesterday, which is a holiday viewing of mine as well, because don't forget, Batman Returns is a Christmas movie.
Yep.
And Jingle All the Way. And for some reason, when I got up this morning, I got up and let the dogs out and I read a little bit of my book, and I just wasn't feeling like sitting, in the sunroom. So I popped on a movie. I'm about halfway through one of the worst Christmas movies of all time called Deck the Halls, starring Matthew Broderick and Danny DeVito. And it's not a horrible premise, but this should be an indication of how bad this movie is. This movie came out in March. A Christmas movie about two guys in town who want to be Mr. Christmas and have the biggest light display came out in March. How do you miss a deadline like that?
That's weird. I would have just held on until the next Christmas.
Me too. I don't see why you wouldn't. So it's so bad. I mean, the jokes are bad. It's every part. And like, Matthew Broderick plays such an unlikable guy in it. This, curmudgeon optometrist who just is so proud of everything Christmas that you can't relate to him, right? They don't give you anything to say like, oh, my Christmas is like this because, my dad left. And so, it's really important for me to have something that's permanent in my life. I mean, I really think that if Hollywood called me, I could read a script and like really help them out on a lot of these projects.
So you're really rooting for Danny DeVito in that movie?
You are, because so I gave you Matthew Broderick's side of it. Danny DeVito's side is this. He goes on an app like Google Earth to see where his house is, and you can't see his house. It's just like in a spot where you just can't see it. And so he feels invisible, like he's never done anything with his life. And so he's an amazing car salesman. And he's like, what? I don't want my legacy to be that I could sell cars. So he decides that this is going to be his legacy, is that he wants to have a house that is so great you can see it from outer space. And I'm like,
Okay.
I get behind that. And really, it shouldn't have been him against like the neighbor. It should have been him and like his family gets mad at his obsession. And he realizes the real meaning of Christmas isn't that, he's invisible. It's that his family is with him. Right. And so,
Right.
you get enough people out there. And so then they all come out and they all bring some Christmas lights and they all bring flashlights and stuff. And then you can see it. And it's the love of that. Look at that. I just wrote a 10 time better movie in 2 seconds, just riffing off of the concept of it. And then we all learn an important lesson. I will say this, as I get older, I keep crying during movies. And it's all like I go from like taking a bite of a sandwich into like, oh God. And I blubber. Here's an example. In Miracle on 34th Street, Santa Claus has been established at Kohl's, and he's already seen a bunch of kids. And then this mother plops a kid on Santa's lap and he goes, "Hello, little girl." And the mom interrupts. She goes, "Oh, she's deaf, but she just really wanted to see you." And Richard Attenborough kind of like looks up at her, and he kind of like he looks like he's lost for a moment, like, what's he gonna do? And then he holds up his white gloved hand and he goes, "What is your," and then name, and he signs it. And she signs back, "Sammy." And he goes, "Sammy, that's a very beautiful," and I'm signing it right here in front. You can't see it because it's a podcast. And it is just this magical moment where this girl's face, like she's already like, she's smiling, but not a lot when she sees Santa. But when he starts signing to her, she like lights up like a Christmas tree. And I know that there are specialty Santas out there who do sign and who speak like multiple languages. And they really make this, they make something extra special for kids. And I just think to myself, like, that's amazing, because everyone deserves a spot, right? Everyone deserves a place on this planet. And I thought that was amazing. Also, Alison Janney steals the show in one moment. I think this might be one of her first film roles, and she puts on this really hard New York accent. And she's telling the store manager how the Santa told her where she could go to get a cheaper like Peter Pollywog. And she's like, "Did you know your Santa is pushing people to other stores?" And he goes, I'll deal with this right now. And she goes, "You can tell your Santa he made a coal shopper out of me. I'm coming here for everything but batteries and bananas." And I mean, it's a classic class of overacting is what it is.
When you become a senior citizen, do you think that you're going to go through a Santa phase?
Yes. I know it. And here's the downside. I want that to be something that's a part of my life so bad, but I cannot grow facial hair. Mm-hmm. And so there's nothing worse than a fake Santa beard. So,
well, you never know. Maybe you'll hit like fourth puberty or something, and suddenly you'll get a beard.
God, I hope so. I am a little jealous of people who Santa has been a part of their lives. Can I tell you a story?
Yeah.
Well, I know a Santa who recently got chastised for being too good at his position.
Right. Yes,
I told Tucker this the other day. So I'm friends with a Santa Claus who is in his first year, and he loves it. He's kind of like the rookie, and he loves being Santa so much that he's like the A game Santa, and all the other Santas are pretty neutral and sit there and just allow like get the kids in the lap, ask them what they want for Christmas, then they take a picture and then they move on. But this one was like hiding behind chairs and like, hey, throwing his arms up. And so it became an issue where his manager had to be like, "You need to be less, because if I have people who come up and complain that they didn't get the good Santa, I'm in a bad place." And I thought to myself, what an awkward conversation to have with someone. Yeah. You're literally supposed to be the embodiment of goodwill towards men, and you got to be like, tone it down.
Yeah. I used to work for that same employer years ago, working at Santa Photo as one of the elves, I guess you could say, but the photo takers and editors. And so I had met a number of the Santas, and yeah, most of them just want to sit there. They're like, "I'm just this. Hey, what do you want? Okay, sounds good, thank you," and move you along. And this guy You'll never get that Santa out of this guy.
No, I didn't think so either. In fact, I was like, shouldn't we want to keep that? And shouldn't be this like this is the Santa that belongs in parades and corporate events and like coming to your house on Christmas Eve and like tapping on the window and making the like shh sound when the kid gets a look and stuff like that. That's the kind of magic that we need.
Absolutely.
On a completely unrelated note, here's another Santa story that. Well, no, I can't tell that one. I'll tell you when we're one-on-one, and if a listener ever asks me, be like, I need to hear your horrific Santa story. I'll tell you all about it. It's just mind-bogglingly crazy. But so we're to the point we got to wrap this thing up, okay? Because I've got to go and get a little bit of holiday shopping done that I needed and take some pictures of air fryers and send them to Tucker. So, folks, I hope you've enjoyed this episode of JJ Meets World. And by the way, thank you. A big shout out to Ben, who sent us a message from our previous episode that has made it all the more sweet and delicious. And you tell Devin that he worked his butt off in the cold, man. And I appreciate everything he did. And I'm sorry that his computer wasn't big enough to do what it needed to do. And my friend is an idiot. And so we all can agree. I mean, he may make one hell of a hot dog in the middle of the night while not wearing pants, but he's not very good at keeping his keys all put together. So, all right. Thank you. Good night. Goodbye. Guten Tag. That's going to wrap it up for today's show. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to help us continue to produce new episodes each week, visit jjmeetsworld.com, where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some swag at the merch shop, or follow our link to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. You can also follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all the sites the cool kids are using these days. JJ Meets World is produced every week by Tucker Lucas. You can find out more about Tucker's work by visiting moonbasemaria.com. If you want to get in touch with your host with the most, check out linebenders.com, where you can find direct contact info for JJ or booking information. If I were writing a Christmas movie, I would name a character Oliver Tannenbaum, so that someone could be like, you're O Tannenbaum.